Now in this video, I just want to cover a few points when it comes to working with text inside Photoshop. There are a number of different ways you can utilize text as a design element, or you can completely format large blocks of text like you would be able to in a program like InDesign or Illustrator. It's gotten to the point now where you can build fully realized designs, including text formatting, all inside Photoshop without having to leave the application. More and more designers are getting on board with this, because there's a lot more advanced text formatting features inside Photoshop. Now in this video, I just want to cover a few, from a design perspective, things you want to keep in mind when you're working with text. So we'll just start by going in and to grab the text tool here. And again, you remember, if you use the text tool, just click and hold, and you have the number of different types of text features available to you. You can do a horizontal type tool or a vertical type tool. You can do a horizontal type mask and a vertical type mask. Now, most commonly, you're going to find yourself probably using the horizontal type tool, and that's what we're going to use in this example here. When you select the text tool, you'll notice up here in the options bar, you've got other features available to you, like selecting the font you want to use, the size of the text, justifying the text, and other formatting features like that. So let's just go ahead and click and select, or click to set a text layer. As you can see right here, it goes ahead and creates a new blank text layer, and we'll just set some text. So we'll just do, this is text in photo. Oh, make sure we spell it correctly. In Photoshop. So let's go ahead and scale this up. Now when it comes to scaling text, you notice I'm doing this by way of the transform box here. And let me just fill that with a black so you can see what's going on here. It set it small, and I'm just scaling it by way of the transform box. This is different than if you were scaling an image, in the sense that it's not resampling, but rather it's just determining where you stop scaling it. When you press enter, it determines the size based on that. So if I go back down to that original size and double click the text layer here to highlight the text, you'll notice up in the options bar, the text reads at 16.44 points. If I go and did that free transform once again and scale it up, press enter, double click and highlight the text again, you'll notice that it is now resized. So whether or not you do it inside the panel here by using the scrubby slider or inputting a specific number or scaling it with the transform box, it's not resampling. It is going to resize the text non-destructively. So you can, it doesn't really matter how you scale the text, it will keep the quality on that. So another point about font selection. When you have your text set, as you can see right here, I'm going to go over here and I want to choose a different font. Well, if you double click on that layer again to highlight the text, you can go up here in the options bar and highlight the name of the font. And once it's highlighted, you can press your up and down arrows to toggle through your font list and see what your text exactly looks like in that font. It's a lot better than going into the menu here, and you'll notice there's the word sample that shows you a sample of that font basically. But how often are you actually using the word sample in your designs? Probably not as much. So you're going to want to go ahead and set the text you're actually going to use, and then just highlight that and then just toggle through, and you can find the text you want in the format you're looking for. So that's a huge advantage there. So that's just a little trick there for that. I'm just going to use one of my favorite fonts, which is Euro style here. Let's go ahead and set that to extended. Again, I'm going to scale it down a little bit. Now, when it comes to formatting text, there's just a few things I want you to be familiar with, and that is things like tracking and kerning and different things like that. So inside Photoshop, again, I'm going to double click and highlight all of the text. The tracking basically is the spacing between all the letters and characters, or in spaces inside of this one line of text here. So you can actually modify that several ways. I'm going to go ahead and open up the character panel, which is by clicking in this icon here in the options bar. You can also access it from going into the window menu and choosing character right here. Now inside the character panel is where all your text formatting features are available. You have that font list right here. You also can change the size, leading, which is the spacing between lines of copy, the kerning and the tracking, different things like that. You can use these by increasing the tracking here. I'm just going over the icon and using the scrubby slider by dragging left to right. You can input a specific number. You can also use a keyboard shortcut to adjust the tracking, is merely holding down the option key and using the left or right arrows. If I use the left arrow, it decreases the spacing between the letters. If I use the right arrow, it increases the spacing between the letters. If I want to modify the space between two individual characters, for instance, if I make, let's go ahead and make this Photoshop Word bold extended. and I want to decrease the spacing between these two characters, just instead of highlighting the whole line, just place the cursor between the two characters and use that same keyboard shortcut. Option left arrow to close in the space, Option right arrow, or Alt if you're on Windows to increase the space. So left and right. So just quick and easy ways of formatting the text. Rarely is there going to be a font that's formatted the way you want it to be. It's going to have spacing in it. You know, some letters have bigger footprints than others, so the font as it was designed compensates for that. So you will have to reformat the text in most cases, depending on what your design is going to be. Now, that's some simple formatting techniques with your text. Again, you can go up in here and use these features in the options bar, and you also have the character panel available to you as well. Now, a couple from a design standpoint, when I talk about text on a path. Now, if I go over here into my toolbar and let's grab something like the ellipse shape tool, I'm just going to draw out a circle here. And I'm holding down the shift key, so it gives me a perfect circle. And let's draw that out. I actually want to draw it out as a path, not a shape, rather. So let's go up here and change this to path. And we'll draw up my shape there. Now, I'm going to go again, select that same horizontal type tool. Now, if I'm in the canvas area, you'll notice the cursor looks like the text tool. If I move it over the path here, you'll notice there's a line through it. And this indicates that I'm about to put text on a path. So I'm just going to click directly on that. And then we'll just see what, we'll just go around the world we go. So now that text is following along this path here. Now you'll notice it's kind of offset because given the positioning of it, you can actually do all the formatting you could do earlier. If I double click and highlight it, I can then decrease the tracking between the letters, closing it in a little bit. If you go down here in the options bar and just below the text tool, select the path selection tool, what you can do is go in here and move the cursor to either end of the graphic. For instance, let's actually center this. The justification, let's center that there. And if I go and see that double arrow, if I go and click and move this around, I can change the positioning of the text on the path. This represents the middle area of it. And if I go down here and click on this little icon here, I can actually limit the area the text is going to be allowed in. So it's each one of these, this is an opening point and an end point here. So if I were to increase the size of my text, and notice it's not going to go beyond that point. It's just going to keep going because I've established limitations to where that text is going to go. So let me just make it a little bit smaller there. And increasing or decreasing the text, I'm just pressing Shift Command and then greater than or less than keys to increase or decrease the size. You can add the Option key and it will increase it by 10 points. So again, Shift Command, greater than or less than keys. It would be on PC, that would be Shift Control and then greater than, less than. So again, as if you have that path selection tool selected, you can go over here and reformat, reposition these in and out points, as well as grab this middle handle and determine where the center of the text will be. Now, if you, while you've got that clicked and drag inside of the shape, you'll notice the text can go inside and you can read it from the inside out. And this just gives you a little bit more flexibility when you want to create a logo and put text around the edge of the graphic. The inner and outer edge, you can actually format it inside or outside of the graphic just by clicking and dragging that element out. And let's just go ahead and grab that. And as you drag it outside of the shape, it puts that on the outside of the shape there. And if this is a closed shape, you can also do this to a simple path. Let's go ahead and delete this one. And let's grab the pen tool, and I'm just going to just draw a simple path here. And again, we'll do that same thing. We'll just go and select the path. Grab that text tool and make sure that we have path saved. We'll just go ahead and just place it right on the text there. And this is text on a path. Now notice it did not show me the rest of that. That's because this control point here stops right on the edge of that graphic. So I'm going to grab it and extend it out here so I have plenty of room to position that. So I can position it just by grabbing this middle control handle and position it where I want to on the path. And then I can set my in and out points of where I want the text to stop or not stop on the path. And you can, again, drag it to the top and bottom of that baseline just by clicking and dragging top or bottom, just like that. So it gives you the flexibility of not just adding text and formatting it inside Photoshop, but also applying it to a path and then having control over it when you do that. Numerous possibilities there. Now, one more aspect of text, and this is something I use often, is that there's always going to be this scenario where a font doesn't necessarily give you everything you want. For instance, I'm just going to type the word zone, just because I'm fond of the letter Z, I guess. I just think it looks cool. But let me go ahead and increase the tracking here between this. So let's say you're building a logo design, or you just want to apply a text effect, and you're not thrilled, or you're not all the way happy with what the font alone gives you. Well, you can take it further by converting the text to paths and then building a design element out of that. Now, just be warned, when you do this, you are removing the editability of the text. And here's what I mean. Right now, I can double-click and highlight the text and retype anything I want in this layer. But what I want to do is take it further beyond what the font gives me. I want to change the shape of these letters. So I'm going to right-click or control-click right on the text layer and choose Create Work Path. Notice what happens in the Path panel here. It basically traced the text, allowing me to create paths out of it. So I'm going to double-click that and save it. I'm going to turn off the original text layer. It did not do anything to the original text. Notice that text layer is still there. It just merely traced it and created paths out of it. Now I can go and grab something like the direct selection tool and go and modify the shapes of these letters. I can maybe take this, drag it all the way over here, drag and select all of these, and do a combine, merge shape components. And now it's combined all these elements together. So I have complete control over this. Again, you do not have the ability to edit the text. You'd have to go back to the beginning and reformat it and then recreate the paths. But now I have that ability to go in here and modify it and really create something interesting that started with a font. But because I had the ability to create some clean paths out of it, I can manipulate this shape in numerous ways and ultimately create a new shape, a new design altogether. A lot of fun with being able to take something that's there, take a basic shape, and then make it into something that it wasn't, make it very original. And again, it saves it as a vector path. It is resolution independent, so it's not necessarily depending on the resolution of your document to maintain its quality. You could bring it into a larger document or a smaller document and scale it down without any loss of quality. So there's just a number of different ways you can utilize text in Photoshop. Remember those path elements, combining path features like putting path on a text or putting text on a path. One last thing I want to show you with regard to that is some text wrapping features. If you've used text wrapping in programs like InDesign, you have those features here inside Photoshop. For instance, if I go and grab that same ellipse shape tool, and let's just add a shape inside of this mirror here. And what I want to do is actually format some text inside of this oval shape. I want it to conform to the shape here. So I'm going to go and grab that text tool. Remember, if I moved it on the path, it actually takes on that line there. If I move it inside the cursor, it gives me another icon indicating that I'm going to put text inside of this shape. So I'm going to click once, and I'm going to actually set my size of my text to around 10. Now, another great new feature inside Photoshop with regard to text is this new type menu. And we actually have the ability to paste lorem ipsum text, which is basically filler text that you can use to format or generate a concept before you actually have the actual copy that's going in the ad. So I go and generate lorem ipsum. It's obviously got a lot of crazy stuff going on, so I'm going to do a Command A and select all. And first, let's bring in that tracking a little bit. I'm going to increase the line spacing, which is merely the Option or Alt key and then the up and down arrows as opposed to the left and right arrows. So increase that spacing, and the size is still quite large. Let's go ahead and just bring that down quite a bit more. And let's increase that line spacing there. Now I'm going to go and change the justification. I'm going to bring up the paragraph panel and just use this one right here, which you just hover over it, justify last left, and you'll notice it fills out that area. So not quite what I want. Let's actually go in here and change the size of my document, because right now the dimensions are huge. See, this is what happens. Resolution is very large and the dimensions are small. So I'm going to turn off resample and go ahead and make that 100. And let's just go ahead and reformat that text perhaps. And let's just repaste that lorem ipsum. There we go. So again, I'm going to bring the size down. And let's just make that fit there a little bit better. And there, that text is now fitting in my design. You can try different types of justifications. Let's just do something like that. And there we go. But now it's basically conforming to that shape inside there. It's actually size it down a little bit more. So let's say I wanted to put that paragraph inside of there. So you can see it's conforming to that shape based on the oval nature of that that shape there. Now if I go over here and grab the ellipse shape tool again and do something like subtract from shape, if I do that, it's going to redraw or redistribute the text because I'm telling it to take it away from this shape here and let it flow around here. So you can actually get really creative with different ways of wrapping text around objects here inside Photoshop. But just remember, you have to create that shape, place the text inside, and then format it accordingly, however the design is going to be played out. So you can see how that works in there. I'm just going to double click on that, close in the line spacing there. And there we have text formatted to a specific shape, wrapping around a specific object here inside Photoshop. So again, a lot of different type features that you would normally had to go in another application to apply, things like text wrapping and putting text on a path like that, are all available inside Photoshop, making it very unnecessary to have to leave the application to go to somewhere like InDesign or Illustrator. It doesn't mean you can't do those things. If you're used to doing things in other programs like that, you certainly can do that. But just know that there are these features built inside Photoshop, especially with regard to text, that allow you to format and really build your designs all within this program.